With guys like Ron Dayne, Monty Ball, Melvin Gordon, and Corey Clement coming through Wisconsin, they know how to produce superstar running backs, and Jonathan Taylor is just the latest product to come out of the running back factory. Jonathan Taylor was the best running back in the 2020 NFL draft class in my opinion, and thankfully he fell to my Indianapolis Colts, and he not only tore it up his rookie year, but he finished third in the NFL in rushing yards and proved the entire football world wrong. Taylor was an absolute beast in college, and I truly do believe he'll be one of the best running backs in the NFL for quite a long time. But you may be asking, how did he get to this point, and how did he get so good in his rookie year? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about the rise of Jonathan Taylor, his entire football story, and why he will be an NFL superstar very soon, if not already. But first, if you are a fan of football, be sure to subscribe, give the video a like, share it with your friends, and suggest what topic I should do next to help the channel out. Now let's get started and talk about the entire football story of Jonathan Taylor. 21 years after Ron Dayne became a star from New Jersey, a new running back arrived in Madison, Wisconsin, whose roots came from that state. His name was Jonathan Taylor, and he was honestly never expected to become the star he would become. He grew up near the Delaware River in a small 3,000 person town called Salem, and the 5'11" kid grew up a quiet and humble kid, and he knew he was going to do big things deep down. He was always faster and better athletically than all the other kids, but his chances of making it big were slim in the eyes of many. He grew up in an insanely strict household where breaking the rules was not to be taken lightly, and he was almost not allowed to play football. He'd end up getting it together though, and he became a really good person that everyone wanted to associate with, and Jonathan wasn't just a talented football player, but he was ultra smart and the type of guy who prepared for life off the field. He was interested in astrophysics, philosophy, and even space, and he thought about attending a school which some people would probably say is pretty prestigious. It's called Harvard. He seriously considered going there, but he ended up deciding to stay in state and play for Rutgers, which is also a very good academic school. He's arguably the fastest player in the state of New Jersey and broke the single-season rushing record, but his offers weren't necessarily elite, as they're from schools such as Virginia, Boston College, and Rutgers. He decided to stay home and play in the Big Ten, as I said earlier, but the Scarlet Knights were going to be a big deal for the small-town kid because it was Big Ten and a Power 5 school. But then he would get a late offer that would honestly change the game. In an in-home visit with Paul Chryst, he wore a Flash t-shirt because he said he was the fastest player in the state. Wisconsin would see potential in Taylor, and they decided to throw him a late offer, one that would completely change his mind on Rutgers, and he chose to commit to the Badgers. According to 24/7 Sports, JT was a 3-star recruit, the number 24 running back, and the 371st best player in the class of 2017. Going into the 2017 season, Taylor had tough shoes to fill, as Monty Ball, Melvin Gordon, James White, and Corey Clement were the guys who had come right before him. With an opening at running back due to Clement's graduation, he was going to get a chance to immediately see the field, and that is exactly what he would end up doing. There were other guys such as Bradrick Shaw, Garrett Groshek, and Chris James, but Taylor took the starting job and ran with it, literally. With a good defense, a powerful offensive line, and Alex Hornibrook as the quarterback, the Badgers were expected to be good in 2017. In his first career game against Utah State, he went for 87 yards and a touchdown. Then in his second game, he would show his true potential. Against Florida Atlantic, he put up 223 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the college football world took notice. He then go on to go for 128 against BYU, 2 touchdowns against Northwestern, 249 yards and 2 touchdowns against Nebraska, 219 yards against Purdue, and 126 yards versus Maryland. Jonathan had literally come out of nowhere to most people, and he was a sleeper for the Heisman Trophy. He would continue to dominate with 183 yards against Indiana, 157 versus number 20 Iowa, 132 versus number 24 Michigan, and 149 against their arch rival Minnesota. He was putting up video game-like numbers, and Wisconsin was not only good, but they were undefeated at 12-0 and 1 win away from the college football playoff. Unfortunately, JT Barrett and Ohio State had other ideas as they defeated the Badgers in the Big Ten Championship and fell just short. Taylor had his worst game of the season against the Buckeyes, but he would bounce back with 130 yards in their Orange Bowl win over number 10 Miami. As a true freshman, Jonathan Taylor rushed the ball 299 times for 1,977 yards and 13 touchdowns, while averaging nearly 7 yards per carry. He finished 6th in the Heisman Trophy voting and broke the record for rushing yards in a season for a freshman in college football history. This kid was a stud, and somehow he was only going to get better. Going into the 2018 season, Jonathan was a preseason All-American, and this helped Wisconsin achieve their highest preseason ranking in school history. He had a huge Week 1 performance against Western Kentucky, and he then followed it up with 253 yards and 3 touchdowns against New Mexico. He's once again off to a great start and had a pretty solid game against BYU, but the Cougars would hit a game-winning field goal, and Wisconsin was going to have a very tough road to the playoff from there. They'd win a tough game at Iowa, and JT would rush for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. The following week, the Badgers were in a must-win territory on the road against Michigan, but they could not get the job done, and their playoff chances went out the window. He ran all over Illinois before he had one of his worst performances of the year against Northwestern, and Wisconsin would lose their third game of the season. He would bounce back with 3 touchdowns against Rutgers before a big game at Penn State. They'd lose their 4th game of the year, and Jonathan took this game very personal. The following week, in a game that I was personally at, Jonathan Taylor rushed for 321 yards and 3 touchdowns against Purdue, and I watched him easily run in for the game-winning score at overtime, and that was annoying. They barely won that game, and then they lost to Minnesota to finish with a 7-5 regular season record. They got a bid to play in the Pinstripe Bowl, where they would for some reason play in Miami for the 2nd straight year, and they would win, and he also had 200 yards in that game. He would lead the country in rushing yards en route to becoming a first-team All-American and the winner of the Doak Walker-Campbell Award for the nation's top running back. He finished his sophomore year with 2,194 yards and 16 touchdowns. Would defenses be able to stop JT in his 3rd college season? They would definitely try, but once again they would fail. This time it was their first game against USF, where he would rush for 2 touchdowns and also caught 2 touchdowns. This was something he would need to do more of if he wanted to be a first-round draft pick. After 3 touchdowns against Central Michigan, they were set up for another huge matchup with Michigan. Taylor went for over 200 yards, and their race to the playoff continued. He'd have 4 more scores against Kent State, and the Badgers shut out back-to-back opponents, and everything was looking very good. They were set to play Illinois, the perennial bottom feeder of the Big Ten West. This was expected to be a pit stop before a showdown with Ohio State, and Jonathan played okay, but the rest of the team didn't show up, as Illinois hung around, made a few big plays at the end, and beat Wisconsin by way of a game-winning field goal. That was terrible for the program, but if they would knock off Ohio State this upcoming week, it would save their season. They lost that game bad, and their playoff dream died. After this, Jonathan Taylor went on a tear as he rushed for over 200 yards in 3 straight games against Iowa, Nebraska, and Purdue, and he scored 2 touchdowns in their win over number 8 Minnesota, and at least Wisconsin won the Big Ten West. They rematched with Ohio State, and he had a pretty good game, but they lost by 2 scores. They'd ultimately get to the Rose Bowl, where they were matched up with Oregon, and this game was an all-time thriller, and Taylor did enough to amass 2,000 yards on the year, but Justin Herbert proved to be too much, and Oregon won. He was once again a first-team All-American, and he won the Doak Walker-Campbell Award for the 2nd straight year, and he was the best running back in college football. He went for over 2,000 yards as he finished with 2,003 yards and 21 touchdowns, and he now holds the NCAA record for most 200-yard games and the most rushing yards through a junior season. He's the 6th leading rusher in college football history, and it would have surely gone up had he stayed another year. JT decided the best thing for him was to enter the 2020 NFL Draft, and despite being the best running back in a long time statistically, he was not expected to be a first-round pick. He'd be taken in the 2nd round by the Indianapolis Colts, and I was literally in awe that we got him. JT is one of those players that just had the it factor, and I think he'll be the best running back from this draft class. He was expected to be the backup to Marlon Mack going into the year, but JT got to take over full-time carries and would also spend some time with Nyheim Hines. To people who followed football, there really wasn't much doubt that Taylor would be a successful running back in the NFL, and if his 3 years at Wisconsin would teach us anything, it was that you should not ever bet against him. In his first start against Minnesota, he went for over 100 yards and also scored his first career touchdown. He did cool off in the middle of the season, but in a huge game against the Raiders later on, he had a career-high 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and one of them would seal the win for the Colts, and this was huge for the AFC playoff picture. He had 3 combined scores in their next 2 games over Houston and Pittsburgh, and that Steelers game was tough for them, but he would blow up in the regular season finale. He went for 253 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Jaguars in a must-win game, and finished his rookie year with 78 yards and a touchdown in their wild card game loss to the Bills. As a rookie, Taylor finished the 2020 season with 1,247 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground. He also caught 305 yards and a score in the receiving game and totaled 291 touches with the Colts. He's a guy who knows how to work, has all the tools to be successful, and has already shown in this first year that he is a force to be reckoned with and can take over a game if they need it. He has always had the it factor, and he has the makings of an NFL superstar, and the Colts definitely got a steal, just like we all knew and thought. I absolutely loved him in college, and I hope he stays healthy and continues to ball out in the NFL, as durability was always his biggest question mark. What do you guys think? If you're a Colts fan, let me know if you think Jonathan Taylor will become an elite running back next season, or if he will kind of fall off. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please be sure to give it a like, as that would really help the video grow, and also let me know another NFL player I should do a story on next. If you're new, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out all my other NFL player story videos, and my video about the Jacoby Brissett experiment. Until next time though, peace.